It was not a strictly law topic, but the platform that brought it about was by a law firm. It was refreshing hearing former President Goodluck Jonathan talk about the diversities of Nigeria and how it can be managed. I'm talking about the 13th edition of the J.K. Gazama Public Lecture, which was held in Abuja. And here we have an opportunity on this program to listen to some of the submissions. Of course, a lot of those submissions were based on law and the morality in Nigeria that governs our democracy. We had law experts talk in the session, but then the keynote speaker was the former president of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan. Welcome to The Scale. That's what we shall be focusing on at the beginning of our program, and then we shall diversify and go into another area. I am Femi Okewo with the pleasure of welcoming you to this edition of The Scale. Yes, I have given you a hint as to what to expect. It was the 13th edition of the J.K. Gazama Public Lecture. And we had the president of the Nigerian Bar Association and a young lawyer, but chairman of the Young Lawyers Forum of the Nigerian Bar Association, and then also a lawyer, but a legislator, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives. All were discussants at this public lecture. But then the man who stole the day was the man who was once at the helm of affairs in this country. We bring you his thoughts again. We shall also reflect on what the organizer of the forum had to say about this public lecture. Speaking at the 13th public lecture of J.K. Gazama with the theme, Redefining Democracy, Yearnings of the Minority in a Democratic Setting, former President Goodluck Jonathan said minorities in a good democracy should not be seen only in terms of ethnic or religious groupings. He said it should be seen in terms of inclusion or exclusion from governance. This, in his estimation, makes women and even youth minority groups in the Nigerian democratic setting in spite of their numbers. Therefore, in view of the grave implications such exclusion can have on our democratic development, all such minority group exclusions, along with language groups, should be consciously avoided by the ruling elite.
As I address the theme, redefining democracy, the place of the minority, or the yearnings of the minority in a democratic setting, I'll be leveraging it to also explore the link between democracy, leadership, and national transformation. How the world look at minorities. Over the ages, there have been robust debates on the place of the minorities in a democratic setting, which in most cases submits itself to the will of the majority. There have also been interesting perspectives on how to make the democracies work better for minorities, even under the government of majority. The first two paragraphs of Article 1 of the United Nations Declaration on Minorities affirm that 1. States shall protect the existence and the national or ethnic, cultural, religious, and linguistic identity of minorities within their respective territories, and shall encourage conditions for the promotion of that identity. 2. States shall adopt appropriate legislative and other measures to achieve those ends. It is for this reason that many international statutes have placed emphasis on minority rights as the means of maintaining global balance and stability. Along these lines, many nations are tinkered with various ways of fostering inclusiveness by adopting different measures, ranging from the affirmative action in the United States to the Willing Minority Commission of Nigeria, which provided for constitutional safeguards for the protection of the minority groups in this country. We may also consider the special laws for the protection of the interests of even tiny minority religious groups, as it is in the case of Pakistan, where seats were provided in the parliament by the 1998 Constitution for the religious minorities, including Hindus, Christians, and other non-Muslims, who make up less than 4% of the population. And even among the Muslims in Pakistan, the Sunni Muslims and the dominant population in Pakistan, the Shia are very, very, almost like the population of the Christians, and they are provided for. Let us look at previous efforts in addressing the minority question in Nigeria. In Nigeria, the complications associated with the marginalization of minority tribes were identified many years ago, and efforts have continued to be made across generations to address it. In 1957, the then British colonial government appointed a Minorities Commission to look into the minority question in Nigeria and recommended measures of allaying the fears of the people of the minority ethnic groups. The Willing Commission, named after its chairman, Sir Henry Willing, recommended what is called a Bill of Rights, patterned after the European Convention on Human Rights, as a means of guaranteeing minority rights and national integration. The continuing challenge with managing the expectations of the minority vis-a-vis national integration brought about the establishment of the Federal Character Commission in 1976.
This year's event is the theme, Redefining Democracy, Yearnings of the Minority in a Democratic Setting, is indeed very, very relevant and timely as it brings to the fore once more one of the most topical political issues in Nigeria today. Choice of the guest speaker in the personality of our former president is truly inspirational because of his position as a foremost national leader and also somebody who believes in the unity of Nigeria.
Organizers of the lecture and other discussants asked for a framework in our democratic governance that would safeguard the rights of the minorities while moderating the excesses of the dominance of the majority.
The notion about democracy is that it is a successful, popular form of government in modern times. It is a type of government where the public will is expressed. The dictum, some are born to rule and others to obey, is unhesitatingly rejected. The definition of democracy that has gained worldwide popularity is the one by none other person but Abraham Lincoln of the USA, who defined democracy in a very succinct set of words as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In every genuine democracy today, majority rule is endorsed and guided by the supreme law of the Constitution, which protects the rights of the minorities. The participation of persons belonging to minorities in public affairs and in all aspects of the political, economic, social, and cultural life of the country where they live is in fact essential to preserving their identity and combating social exclusion. Mechanisms are required to ensure that the diversity of social norms in the society concerning minority groups is reflected in public institutions and that persons belonging to minorities are adequately represented. Speaking of minorities, I thank Your Excellency for reminding us that, because when we talk minorities in Nigeria, everybody just thinks in terms of ethnic minorities. But minorities abound. And as a society progresses, you find out that there are many minorities that are emerging. Ethnic, yes. Religious, yes. Gender, yes. We're still talking about the rights of women today. The youth, who are now having to sorosoke because they find themselves, and minority is not so much about numbers, but it's also about how a certain group are treated in the larger scheme of things. So you find out that that is also an issue. We have different groups of minorities. I will not repeat the lecture, but the first thing is how to deal with it, like I've said, is if we do, or if we sort it out from the point of view of proper codification of what we agree to be the rules of engagement, then you find out that it will be less and less be a troublesome issue. Proper codification, speaking of which, constitutional review is ongoing. Constitutional review ought not to be a jamboree. Constitutional review ought not to be a rushed exercise.
The issue of minority is not only a function of number, it's equally a function of inclusion or otherwise. And I will stand on this premise to show that even in the arms of government, in the arrangement and the operation of the arms of government in a democratic setting, certain arms of government are minorities. Yes. The legislature and the judiciary is a minority in the Nigerian setup. So how do we accommodate the interests of the legislature and the judiciary? Let me show you a pointer. How could we allow our courtroom to be closed for 2 months? Our courtroom and even the state legislature to be closed for 2 months without functioning. Why? Because the executive, as represented by the CEOs, who ought to have given a level of inclusion by judicial autonomy to the legislature and the judiciary, has decided to exclude those arms of government. So how do we accommodate the legislature and the executive to be treated as minority and with their right in the structure of government? Again, looking at the tier of government, the third tier, the local government, is a minority. How do we deal with the local government to give them, with them been crying for inclusion through financial autonomy? And so when we look at the issue of minority, it is, I say it again, it is not only a function of number, it's a function equally of inclusion or otherwise.
A number of us have campaigned and championed the use of technology in our voting process. And for the people who constitute the minority, economic minority, the young people, this is our preference, that the voting process should incorporate some form of electronic voting. We may not be able to bring people together to go into different places for campaign and all of that, but we can mobilize for votes online. The reason why there's a difference between the outcomes when you observe the popularity of certain persons on social media and what happens on election day is because there is that absence of the ease with which we're able to express our voice in the voting process itself. If young people can easily cast their votes from their houses electronically, you can rest assured that the expression of their interests prior to the election period will reflect as well in the election outcomes.
Yes, these are thoughts, and I'm sure a lot of you share their thoughts too, possibly even more. And we shall continue to extray these thoughts as our nation continues to progress. But then They are founded on the laws of Nigeria, and let's hope that our diversity will be continuously properly managed, because the truth is that our strength lies in that diversity. Another institution that reflects the diversity of Nigeria very effectively is the National Youth Service Corps, and they have been holding their annual legal aid workshop. This is a workshop that brings together lawyers of the service and the legal department of the NYSC. It helps them to brush up their knowledge and see how better they can give their input into the development of the justice sector in Nigeria. Here, again, are highlights of the speeches we had at the NYSC Law Legal Aid Workshop, which again also held in Abuja. The annual Corps Legal Aid Workshop is the National Youth Service Corps' way of strengthening the capacity of its legal departments across the country and empowering youth corps lawyers, particularly in the area of representing the weak and indigent before the court of law. Director General of the NYSC said this area of focus is significant enough to influence the nation's justice system positively, and called on employers to show interest in the duties of their core lawyers. The Legal Aid Council, for instance, and the Correctional Services of Nigeria make no apologies about their dependence on core lawyers to facilitate their job. How does that make NYSC feel?
It makes NYSC tick. And it goes to showcase to Nigerians the importance of the core members, the role they are playing on our national development. You see, I was so privileged, I attended a workshop some time ago when an ex-core member testified that through his instrumentality, several innocent inmates were released. I say he cannot thank the NYSC enough for the privilege given to him to serve the country. And the core members are playing this role nationwide. And that is why the Legal Aid Council and the Correctional Service rely so much on the service of the core member. Without the core member, they will find it very difficult to operate. And as I keep telling my core members, as they are patriotic, and wherever they find themselves, they should continue to add value. This should continue to spur them to continue to serve their country wherever they are. And I want to also thank the Correctional Service and the Legal Aid Council for also, because the core members are also learning, they're also being trained. And it's a two-way traffic. We want to thank them for the support they've given to the core members.
Let's talk about one of the issues you raised in your speech, that organizations that employ persons who either were not officially discharged or did not serve. What are the penalties for that?
The penalties are there. I mentioned section 13, section 3 up to 5, 3 to 5. It states the penalty there, that whoever that has no certificate of national service or exemption certificate, and you employ such a person, that's a penalty. You go to jail, there's a fine or both. So that's why I want to appeal to Nigerians to ensure that whoever you are going to employ, please let him authenticate the certificate with the NYSC, so that you don't commit an infraction and then you'll be caught napping, so that people don't use the issue of technicality to put you into trouble. So we want to appeal to Nigerians that whoever is going to employ, both in the public and the private sector, please verify, authenticate their documents. And if the person doesn't have any NYSC document at all, please, he's not supposed to be employed by your organization, so that you don't run foul of the law. NYSC is the constitution, and we need to at least do the right thing. And is this a forum for us to sensitize Nigerians and on what the NYSC Act entails? And I also use this opportunity to appeal to Nigerians to please continue to read through the NYSC Act, get to understand it, ask questions when necessary, so that you don't run foul of the law.
Experts were brought in to talk on the topic, examining the laws regulating practice of ICT, with particular reference to data protection regulations.
It is therefore expected that this topic will stimulate profound discourse on the various regulations guiding the processing of data in Nigeria as it applies to the scheme.
The word saying that knowledge is power is as good as information is power. And that statement has become more glaring and profound in recent times?
We offer free legal services, pro bono services to inmates in Nigerian correctional centers across the country, but particularly at our host communities. So we go to these correctional centers, we interview the inmates. Those of them who have petty offenses nailed to them. Some of them are convicts, and some of them are still suspects and pretrial detainees. Some have even served, we'll call it a prison term that is far beyond the prison term they were supposed to serve if they have been convicted. So we try to interview them and get them out of the prison. If they have not been, convicted, pretrial detainees now, we take them to the courts and we defend them. And this might secure, their release or conviction, as the case may be.
You have similar colleagues like this doing this kind of job across the country?
Yes, we do, in all 36 states of the country. And here we have one in FCT, very vibrant legal aid group in FCT. But we also have our colleagues, and we are all here for this program, the workshop here from various states of the Federation.
Tell us about part of the experience going to court as a lawyer, and why is a lawyer?
It has been amazing, to be honest. NYC has given me the opportunity to do things that ordinarily on my own I wouldn't have the opportunity to do. This has given me the opportunity to go to part of cases that ordinarily as a young lawyer I wouldn't be part of. They fix us with experienced lawyers that will teach us the ropes at little or no cost. It's on a platter of gold. You have the wisdom of experienced lawyers seeing you through just because of the opportunity that NYC has given us to be part of. I'm serving with the Nigerian police force. I'm able to experience so many things that on my own, if I join a chambers now, I wouldn't know how litigation, prosecution works, being a prosecutor works. But NYC has given me this on a platter of gold. And I must commend NYC, and they should keep doing this for more young people to be able to see the world beyond where they are coming from. Okay. Because they take you to states where you are not from to be able to see things you would ordinarily not have the opportunity to see. It's a good thing.
How receptive, how welcoming are senior lawyers and possibly the judge when you announce your appearance and you say you are a core lawyer?
They are very excited. Most of them are like fathers and mothers, excited to see young ones growing up. I remember when I announced my appearance for the first time, the judge was so nice to me because they're trying to encourage us that are coming up for the first time. It was nice.
This is the 6th Annual Legal Aid Conference of the Corps. Those are the bits and pieces we have for you this week. They are more of speeches and ceremonies, but sometimes we need these things to reflect on our thinking because our development actually starts from our thinking. Let's hope we get the thoughts right and so we can move forward in terms of our actions. Thank you for being part of our program today. And of course, more issues are always coming up in the polity that have to do with our justice sector. You can't look anywhere else to find them other than on the scale. We'll see you again.